announcement of a free DLC to Mirage gave me a slight hope. I was thinking there was something here maybe that an avid fan of the series could enjoy. And I am happy to confirm that this indeed is mostly the case, albeit the enjoyment is quite short and even limited. Nevertheless, it could be said that Assassin's Creed Mirage Valley of Memory is almost cinema. As someone who has been playing Assassin's Creed for nearly a decade, I was starting to feel hopeless regarding the series and its direction towards massive open worlds with more style than substance. However, the announcement of a free DLC to Mirage gave me a slight hope. Now this hope is very limited. The hope I have is mostly placed on Bordeaux. I'd even call it hopium. At this point, it really feels impossible to have some good decisions made in this franchise. However, Ubisoft stocks are at an all-time low actually, in the past 5 years at least, and new smart decisions have to be made. They do not have lots of wiggle room left for questionable decisions like they had in the past 5 years, and so maybe this is their new way to regain some of our trust. This is kind of the perspective I've had when I've been playing this game, this DLC, and try to make something out of it, a review. There are lots of new mechanics, there's lots of potential, and it is partly realized actually. Let's get to some of the new gameplay mechanics. We have a new manual jump. After more than 10 years of begging, Ubisoft finally gave us a manual jump. There is only one slight limit. You can't jump on without movement, so you can't just stand still and jump. But aside from that, you can make manual jumps whenever you want. It's enough if you walk. You just have to have the sprint button and then press space and you will jump to wherever you want. So you can jump forwards, I guess sidewards. We also have a replay system for missions. It really feels like I am reading up the features of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood here. Everything here is pretty much what you have in the old games. We can now replay main missions again, which is very nice. We also have some bonus challenges to go alongside with it, and if you do them, you get some special rewards. We also have new difficulty settings, even some filters for the old Assassin's Creed games. Assassin's Creed 2, there's a filter, and there's a filter for Unity as well, and Origins, I think. There's like an activity where you can play some music on an instrument in this town. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same as the base game. Let's get to the new world we have, the new map. Alula, which is this new region we get for completely free alongside with the DLC or the missions. The world is very nice. It actually feels surprisingly different from the base game. I mean, obviously you do have the desert, which you had in the base game as well, but it still feels different landscapes. There are lots of these mountains everywhere, very tall ones, but not that large. There are also some fortresses in them and some kind of camps, which really feel like camps. They do not feel as copy-paste as you're accustomed to in, say, Shadows. Now, there's actually a small town in the DLC as well within Alula. It's very nice. It's a shame we do not have many missions in this new town. We really only have like 1 or 2 missions and then we are off to the desert again. I really feel like Bordeaux should have utilized the town more because it really is awesome in this DLC. It feels even more parkour focused than the base game map, which was already amazing for parkour. So some big props for that. I really loved the world in this DLC. Maybe the deserts were a bit too big, but the town absolutely made up for it. Now for this review, we will be discussing about the story in 2 parts. First of all, we're going to talk about the story overall without spoiling it, and then we'll be going a bit deeper into it just to discuss some main storylines really. I think the story starts very strong. We have a very nice kind of cinematic opening sequence to the DLC where we can see Basim going with Dervish to Alula. I love that. After that, we pretty quickly get thrown into the missions. There are some basic traders in the starting village, but there's really nothing special. I was expecting some cool new armor sets or weapons. The traders didn't have anything special in that regard. They did have some horse skins, I suppose, but aside from that, nothing really special. The story, if we talk about it as a whole, I think it mostly is pretty great. The first maybe 20-30 minutes are a bit slow, but then you get thrown into it, and I must say, I really love the cutscenes in this DLC. The cutscenes really felt well captured. They felt mo captured. There's a chance they are motion captured because I could swear that the animations were so much more natural than we normally are used to seeing in these games. The story itself is pretty short. It's only like 2.5 hours, 3 hours maybe, depending on how you're playing the game. I finished it about 3 hours in, so it really depends how you play the game. I think it was a perfect kind of length for the story considering what they had, and I will just say without spoiling, the ending is really good in this story, and I think it's one of the things that makes this DLC almost cinema, I suppose. There are still a few drawbacks which I will get into just a bit later on. There were still these awkward moments, I suppose, in the dialogue and just overall acting. I think the Basim's actor did a great job in his portrayal of Basim, so I had no issues there. However, I think the NPCs in the world, when they had these kind of horror stories they were telling us, where they were a bit just mid. I'll just leave it at that. The animations also weren't that great at all, but these main story cutscenes, like I said, were very well made. I really appreciate that the story also was a bit more, should I say, layered than a normal AC story, so I like I'm trying to not spoil the story. I promise I'll get into this in the spoiler section, but I like the mission variety. I think they did a great job in creating some pretty surprising amount of variety in these 3 hours of story gameplay that we had. Overall, I would summarize the story as a pretty good story, I would say. Especially considering this is a DLC that nevertheless is totally free for all the players. So considering that, I would say the story in this DLC is very, very good. Now there is a kind of a part in this DLC, let's say maybe 30-40 minutes, where you are kind of doing chores again. I just don't know why Ubisoft keep giving us these chores. The excuse this time is that we have to discover more about the clan, but really it's just us going around, killing some people, and pressing E to investigate some sites, and it's just the normal Assassin's Creed stuff at this point, but I am tired of it. Alright, let's get a bit deeper into the story. The story starts off with you and Dervish going to Al Ula, to a kind of a starting village. From there, Basim quickly gets introduced to the main villain in this game called Nimlot. He really seems like just normal merchant. However, afterwards thinking, it was pretty obvious that they were setting him up as some kind of antagonist, considering that he was the only character who really had some great facial animations. I should have at that point realized that he is probably the antagonist in this DLC. We had some pretty good missions. Basim actually starts off in the town when he's starting to look for his father. He is tailing a target, so there's kind of a short tailing mission, giving me some good old AC vibes, I suppose. But quickly, Basim gets set into a trap, then he gets sent to prison, where there is another kind of a leader who is then torturing him. And honestly, at this point, I don't even remember his name. He was kind of this mini antagonist, I suppose. I really liked the prison sequence where we took a break from the Assassin's Creed gameplay and we just kind of looked around. We're looking for some solution. How can I get Basim out of here? And I thought that was great. I really liked the more slower pace there, and I wish it's something that we could have more of in Assassin's Creed. That being said, I was really disappointed in the way Basim escaped the prison. I was getting ready that Basim is going to pull some kind of a huge trick, but in the end, he just whistles for his bird, and then the bird kind of gives him the key, which is just so anticlimactic. I know it's Assassin's Creed, I know it's a video game, but I was looking for some more dramatic type of way to get out than going with a bird around and just flying close to some place and then seeing a cutscene playing. After you get from the prison, you go around riding across the mountains, raiding some bandit camps, like I was talking about, some chores. Once you're done with that, you eventually find out where Nimlot is hiding, and you also get to know that Nimlot is the one who is holding Basim's father hostage. And I was really surprised to see Basim's father actually being alive in this game. I thought that they maybe had killed him off, and I was really expecting this DLC to being Basim going to a graveyard and seeing his father grave, pretty much. I was actually kind of shocked his father was alive and with Nimlot, so that was a good surprise there, and I really liked that part. The ending cutscene with Nimlot is some of the greatest stuff I've seen in a while from Assassin's Creed. It was really intense. I was really not sure how it would end. I was happy to, for once, kind of not know what is going on. It's something that I once again wish we could see more of in this franchise. Once Basim rescues his father doesn't really realize, he doesn't believe that Basim is his son. This is kind of messaged in a subtle way, which I liked. So Basim really is like telling him that he is Basim's father, but his father doesn't believe him. Basim instead just realizes that there is no point, and he just starts acting as if he isn't his father's son. This was very interesting, kind of seeing this play out, this kind of game where Basim knows that it's his father, but his father doesn't know it's Basim, and I really thought that was kind of an interesting dynamic there. The final cutscene where Basim is sending his father off had some of the greatest dialogue, probably the greatest dialogue in Assassin's Creed Mirage. It was great. I was so happy for once to not see a parent of the protagonist die. So I really appreciated that they didn't kill him off like they usually do. The part where Basim's father, Ishak, tell my little Basim, tell him one day when his time comes, we will be together again. I really thought that was a beautiful moment in the game. Overall, if I'll summarize the story, I really thought it was great. Like I said in the spoiler-free section, it had great moments. There was just this little part where we were doing these chores. They weren't really affecting the story. I think overall, the character stories did well. And like I said, this is a free DLC. Can't really complain much. The stuff we got, considering it's free, is absolutely great. And it was way better than I expected. Just spend a short minute talking about the sound design in this DLC. Now, obviously, Assassin's Creed games, these recent ones, they don't have that great of an audio design, and this game kind of continues on that trend and this DLC as well. However, I will say the soundtrack is absolutely amazing in this DLC. It's easily one of the best soundtracks I've heard. After I'd played this DLC, I went on YouTube and just played up the soundtrack again. The soundtrack was great. It went well with the intro, it went well with the outro. I was just feeling it. The sound design in the game leaves a lot to be desired, as per usual AC standard. Overall, I'll say value of memory is not something I had expected, especially from a free DLC. We have been so accustomed to these very, very mediocre DLCs, or I should say free updates that we get to Assassin's Creed games. This free DLC came as a shock once I played it. I really didn't have high hopes, and I actually played this without really watching anybody else play it before, and I was just ready to be underwhelmed. I was actually overwhelmed just by how much more effort they had put into the story than I had thought. The new mechanics are welcome addition. I absolutely love doing manual jumps again. Overall, the movement and just this new control scheme that you have to start using if you want to use the manual jump, it just feels so much like the old Assassin's Creed games. The small frustrations, guys, chores, and the sound design is kind of iffy, and there were just a bit too few missions in this town that I loved, and just the cheesy kind of part in the story, which I mentioned in the spoiler section. Those are some of the small things that are holding this back from being absolute cinema. This DLC is cinema that has flaws, and so I will unfortunately have to label this DLC as almost cinema. Alright, thank you guys for watching this review. Go ahead and drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this DLC. Let me know what you think of my opinions. You're free to disagree as much as you want. I really like making this video. This is probably the first of many reviews to come in this channel. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any suggestions, let me know. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.